percent of the bonds that are sold in Europe have a negative interest rate. Well, the largest bond company, PIMCO, said that in order to solve the Greece situation, they're going to have to surrender sovereignty. They're going to not only come for our money, for our property, they're coming for our sovereignty. And that's really what's going on with this trade deficit. But let me just give you some figures to put this in perspective. When Grayson talks about the trade deficits, he goes back to NAFTA. And he says that when NAFTA was first enacted, we had never had a $140 billion trade deficit. Immediately after they enacted it, we got a $140 billion trade deficit. We've never had a smaller trade deficit than that since, for the 20 years since. Now, of course, Clinton, who was a Democrat, and give them credit for attacking the Democrats when they're doing the wrong thing. Clinton had said we were going to have a massive new spur to the economy. We're going to have all of these jobs that were created. No, we have lost incredible amounts. We have lost the meat of our manufacturing.
Right.
But everybody's going to lose that. We've got an article about the Chinese. Now they're going to be building their first all-robot factory in China.
Right.
So they're just bringing in cheap labor and doing this as a interim solution until they can completely get rid of people who are working.
They're workers, and this is China, where it's like the sweatshop workers, and even that is too much. They've got labor shortages. They have the people there that, you know, they sleep underneath their desks. They don't go home. They jump off buildings. They've got nets and things catching people who are just overworked and exhausted. So that's too much trouble. These people don't want to work 24 hours a day, so we're just going to replace everyone with robots. This is a place that, you know, is employing
really
people
dangerous,
that are working like for $1 a day.
Exactly. What's really dangerous is even though you've got workers who are committing suicide because they put them under so much pressure, what's really even more dangerous in this country is that we are declining. And when you have declining standards of living, that's when people really get upset. That's when things get violent, get dangerous. In China, at least, the vast majority of people there are seeing, even though they're very poor, even though they're overworked, they are seeing an increase in their standard of living. But here we're seeing a rapid decrease, and it's going to accelerate. And that's what Jade Helm is about.
Right.
But let's go back to this trade Pacific, the trade agreements between the Pacific and the Atlantic agreements. Listen to the way Politico describes this. Extreme secrecy is eroding support for Obama's trade pact. Listen to what you have to go through to look at this. They say you've got to go to a classified briefing. You've got to leave your staff. You've got to leave your cell phone. If you're a member of Congress and you want to read the text, you've got to go to a room in the basement of the Capitol Visitor Center, be handed it one section at a time, because I guess they don't want some senator to take the entire agreement and just walk out the door and expose it to the press, okay? You got to be watched over as you read it, and you got to hand over any notes that you make before you leave. Now, I would say to you, Leanne, who is the government here? When you have those kinds of rules put on our elected officials.
Right.
Who is the real government? Congress is nothing but a facade for this fascist multinational corporatism that we've got going.
Yeah.
That's precisely what it is. But of course, they justified in the article by saying, well, people may not realize it, but these trade agreements are an issue of national security. So whenever they want to justify the secretive state, they do it in the name of national security. So they do it again with this.
Yeah, well, Doggett, one of the reps, is pointing out that the cover sheets of these trade documents, they're only marked confidential document. And so they can be transmitted over unsecured email and fax, back and forth to these corporate conglomerates. But for some reason, they're restricted to members of Congress. So there it is right there.
It underscores who the real rulers are. If you've got any questions about it, read this article about how they clamp down on members of Congress, how they will not let this go out. They talk about stakeholders. Understand that in this new economy, you don't have a stake.
Right.
You're not allowed to know anything. And quite frankly, these people in Washington, because they're not standing up to this, they're just simply being puppets for this. I am sick and tired of a government that does everything in secret. We've got secret trade agreements. We've got secret courts. The FISA court is secret. It does authorizes dragnet surveillance. It has court findings that we're not allowed to see, but they presume that it changes our Constitution, even though these things are secret in a Star Chamber court. Everything that they do is secret. And that's why it is very concerning when we see Jade Helm. We understand that we have this massive bond bubble. We understand they don't want anyone to save, to create. That's why they want to punish this. Right. That's why they're coming up with negative interest rates. They're saying that it's to stimulate the economy. But of course, it's not going to stimulate the economy. They want to confiscate cash because they want to know everything about you They don't want us to know anything about them. It's kind of
Right.
what was said by our founders, that where the government fears the people, there's liberty. Where the people fear the government, there's tyranny. Well, when the government knows everything about you and you know nothing about them, that is the primary way that they're going to enact that kind of tyranny, intimidating people, blackmailing government officials. And this secretive trade agreement is just one way that they're going to move this forward, destroy the economy. And that's why we need to be concerned about these military trainings that we see in the urban areas, because it's going to break very quickly once it happens.
Right, and it's just upsetting to me that we're still being attacked. CNN had an attack piece on us again today about this Jade Helm. But that's what it is. They're running with this whole, we're saying that it's going to be martial law and this and that. We're not saying that's happening this summer, but we're saying people should be concerned. And there's a reason why this is about civil unrest, and it is happening around the country. And when you see these trade agreements being enacted in secret, and then Obama has the hubris to come out and say, this is the most transparent trade agreement ever.
Yeah.
They're going to be able to look at this thing for 60 days after I decide on, but they're only allowed to vote up or down. They can't make any amendments.
That's right.
And so when you look and you see, then they say.
And as Sessions pointed out yesterday, the U.S. Trade Representative has said that these are living agreements. That means that they can bring anyone into this agreement that they want to at any time, and they can make any kind of change that they want to at any time, which is exactly where we are with the bureaucracies. The government has abdicated its authority, its legislative authority, the Congress has, to these bureaucracies like the BLM, like the EPA, like the IRS. They write the rules. They have the same effect as law. They have their own courts. They have their own police departments, go out and round people up. And that's what we're going to see with this multinational trade agreement. It is going to be just a group of bureaucrats who are going to continually rewrite this thing. And what we have to understand, this article that came out over the weekend, major retailers are closing more than 6,000 stores. This is on INFOWARS.com. It was from Economic Collapse Michael Snyder. And he points out that he listed only the major retailers that have announced plans to close at least 10 stores. And guess what? This doesn't include the 1,000 stores that McDonald's is closing worldwide. We don't know how many of those are in the United States, but that's just right here. And he says, we're kind of in a stable situation right now. What happens when things get worse quickly? It is going to collapse very quickly. So that's the retail segment. We've talked yesterday, we mentioned it somewhat about the IT segment, Disney bringing in foreign workers, but of course there's an AI component to that as well. And then look at what we mentioned earlier going on in China. We've got a factory there that is going to use robots only for production. They're going to add 1,000 robots, and the goal is to reduce the number of people by 90%.
90%.
What are we going to do when we've got 90% unemployment?
Right.
You're going to have massive riots, and you're going to have massive extermination.
Look at Baltimore. They're 50% unemployment there, a little over 50% unemployment. That's what it's going to look like in large swaths of this country. And they don't have any answers for that when they're working on this trade agreement in secret. They see the writing on the wall. They know it's going to automation. But here they're continually trying to placate us and saying, oh, it's going to get better. That's just this huge deficit is just a blip. It'll be better for April. But then we're closing down 6,000 major retail stores. Obviously, the internet is playing a huge role in that. A lot of people are shopping online. That's never going to change. So what is the answer to this? And it doesn't seem like there is an answer. And then they tell, American students, go get a job in IT or get a job in engineering. And then they do, and they amass these huge student loans. And then those jobs, they think they're good, they're secure because they're working in IT, and they're being outsourced.
Well, quite frankly, we can look at just the economic aspects of these trade agreements, and we understand that they are not trade agreements. They're not about free trade. They're managed trade. This is not an open free market. This is crony capitalism of the same type that we saw with the bankers who were too big to fail when they created the mortgage bubble and then burst that. That's precisely what's going on with this. It's an export of jobs, but there's so much more about it because there's the takeover of the internet. There's forcing people to buy their products, not allowing people to make the decisions, forcing GMOs on them, forcing our pharmaceutical products on them, that most of the world has outlawed many of these toxic things that are done here in America because they can get it done with our corrupt government. So this is a way of just taking it to the next level. Just as India's farmers are rebelling against GMOs there, well, they can stop that by doing a trade agreement. And that's the really concerning thing. So what we have here is we've got somebody that's gone into the cockpit of the plane and locked the door, and we're pounding on the door saying, you're going to fly it into the mountain. And we've got to get this door open. We've got to open up our government. We've got to stop this secretive government that makes everything a secret, hides everything from us, and tells us that we're not stakeholders. And if we ever have an elected official like Ted Cruz or Abbott who question what the government is telling us, like they did in Jade Helm, then they are excoriated in the press. How dare us question anything the government does, because we have to either be permissive and let them do whatever they want to do without question, or we are hostile, and they will treat us as hostiles.
Absolutely. And in the meantime, they're going to just lie to people through the mainstream media and their minions, and also push this propaganda on us. We're going to talk about this coming up in the next segment. Alex is going to be in studio talking about the AARP commercial that we spoke about, where they were using some type of a military, you know, everyone stay indoors, martial law has been enacted, and they came out and said that they were doing that to trigger a time in the past. You know, we were just trying to, which martial law?
Fake subliminal message.
Yeah, and it's just like, we know that this is a subliminal message, and now it's not just that one. There are several more commercials out like this where they're talking about martial law. It's subliminal messages in commercials, but at the same time, the media is attacking us and telling us that we are insane conspiracy theorists for even thinking that something like that is being planned or that it's possible.
We never had a nostalgic martial law scenario.
That's what I'm saying.
That was always the fantasy of Barney Fife. It was never a part of our nostalgia. But yeah, it's very interesting that they would put it in there, and their explanation for it really doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's what we're here to do, is just expose you to all the lies out there, the propaganda in the mainstream media. And of course, this Trans-Pacific Partnership is going to just be filled with more propaganda. They're telling us that they have to pass this so that China doesn't set the rules for the game out there in the Asia Pacific. But
Monsanto will set the rules.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Pick
Sony.
your corporate master.
That's right.
All right, well, stick around. Alex Jones will be in studio closing out the show.
A chemical spill contaminating the water supply in 9 West Virginia counties.
What are the health effects of having these drugs in our drinking water?
It's forced medical treatment without the consent of residents.
My friends, water filtration is one of the most basic actions you can take to protect you and your family from the harmful toxins and heavy metals in your tap water.
On average, the county says it sprays with the glyphosate at least once a week.
Few filters cut out the glyphosates that is found in water supplies worldwide. Remove pesticides, herbicides, chloramines, hydrofluorosilicic acid, sodium hexafluorosilicate.
Fluoride is in tea, it's in coffee, it's in water, it's in bread, it's in toothpaste.
It is our responsibility to protect our families. The establishment's not going to do it. It's time to take action. It's time to filter our water.
Go to InfoWarsStore.com today, and for a limited time, use the promo code WATER20 and get 20% off all ProPure products. Again, that's InfoWarsStore.com, or give our crew a call at 888-253-3139.
Did you know that only 6 corporations control 90% of what millions of Americans see, hear, and read every single day? It's the illusion of choice. Think about it. The mainstream media is owned by only a handful of megacorporations with vested interests. But on the other hand, the internet is an interconnected network of billions of sources. So you can research information for yourself from multiple sources, or you can blindly accept what you hear or read in the mainstream media, never questioning what you are being told. And this gives you a false sense of reality. I mean, do you actually know what you think you know? Or have you been programmed to accept someone else's version of events? Think about it. This is Darren McBreen, and I want you to break the matrix at InfoWars.com and PrisonPlanet.tv and listen to The Alex Jones Show, because there's a war on your mind.
And finally tonight on this Tuesday edition of InfoWars Nightly News, we have some chilling developments on the FEMA camp front that we're going to be breaking down. Now, first off,